Good Wednesday morning, YouTube. Day 3 of the Crazy Listathon, back here at about 7:45 a.m. Got some coffee over there. Time to knock out the rest of these watches. I'm going to go take a look in the back room here in just a minute and figure out what else I have besides watches to list. Just kind of motivate myself to get those done quickly and see if there's anything I need to prioritize over others. So far, the whole listing thing is going pretty good. Let's get into the vlog for today. So if you've noticed, I am behind on the vlogs a little bit, so I need to get the Sunday vlog, which shouldn't be too difficult because it should be a short one, / this is a little bit of editing, edited this morning, and then I need to get that uploaded here, and then I need to get the vlog for Monday uploaded also later today, probably at 7 p.m. or something similar, because I'll edit it when I get home. Basically, with the whole listathon thing, I've been trying to focus on the listing rather than taking long hour / 2-hour breaks to edit the vlog, so it's just been kind of on the back burner. The Monday vlog is probably going to be a long one, even though it's less editing. So anyway, here are the watches that I have to get listed yet. Let's just give a quick count here. Well, if my count's correct here, I have exactly 60 watches left to list. That includes these lots over here, counted as one. Like the entire lot is one. So, that's definitely quite a few. Let's go take a quick look in the back room and see what I have there. And also at this pile of watches. I'm pretty sure those are all going to be sold at a lot too. Dealer was mentioning yesterday that I should probably prioritize here and get some of the better camera stuff listed. So I'll probably take a break today at some point and get some of this stuff listed here. Actually, there's another tote of parts watches there that should probably be gone through and checked out. And then this is a big tote of cheap watches. Those are going to be lighted up too, but those are probably going to wait all the way till the end. Got to grab a couple more out of these too. There's some more manual wind watches. So I have plenty of watches to list. But I definitely need to get some of this camera stuff in there. So I'll definitely take a break later today and get into that a little bit. There's going to be some really good camera stuff in here. The problem is with this camera stuff, this stuff's pretty dusty. This was actually on display for a good 20 years at a coffee shop of some sort. We collected cameras as well. So there's lots and lots of dust out. We need to get the air compressor out and try to blow those off. Have a really good brass lens here, which I'll definitely show you that once I get to it. Have a bunch more boxes full of cases back here. These are all camera cases. And I can't believe this is all the dusty stuff, so I'm going to have to go and look through and figure out where else the rest of that is, if there is any. And then, of course, this is actually dealer stuff. Dealer's going to be listing this big old weird camera if it's worth listing. And I need to take a look through this case probably in a short amount of time. Basically to sort out any filters that are going to be worth more than the average one there, and then sell the rest in lots. The Koken filters go well in lots, the other ones go well in lots. It's all pretty good. So I noticed here, man, that rainstorm must have been pretty significant if it started coming in the garage here. Anyway, long, diluted, ranting intro thing, just kind of talking you through what my day is. That's how these vlogs are going to be, I have a feeling. Just kind of early till late, super listing all day, every day for this week so far. This morning, I'm actually feeling pretty good and rested. We went to bed at midnight yesterday instead of 1, which is good for getting up at 7 a.m. Definitely had kind of a break between getting up at 7 a.m. and getting the coffee, which is like 7:40, so lost a little bit of time there, but I need to answer some questions and some other things there. I need to add up my number and get my vlog ended for Tuesday. So hopefully this is all interesting and all good vlog material. Should have some cool watches to show you today. Should have some camera stuff hopefully later in the day. Let's get into the listing. Let's hit the ground running. Let's hit off the listings. First, let's knock out the rest of the watches that I have pictured here. Okay, so I should definitely try some of the other higher end case back opening tools before I make a full review on this thing, but so far I'm really liking it. This is actually made by Victorinox, the company that makes the Swiss Army knives, and this is a watch case back opener, sorry, one-handed here. Watch case back opener knife, as you can see right there, and this one has a really good geometry. From what I found, it really works well for opening watch case backs. I've opened quite a few of them now. And it also has a small knife on there, which I will not try to open one-handed. And this thing is very sharp, very good, small little pocket knife thing. So this is basically like a Swiss Army knife crossed with a watch toolkit. And actually this morning I found some extra features, or yesterday night, but I just didn't mention it yet. Kind of hard to do this without a tripod, but as you can see in the end here, there's these two little dots. I didn't realize until I looked on the website when I actually ordered another one of these that these are also tools. Got a little tweezers here, which could be useful for a few different things. And then also we have a little plastic pick, which could be useful as a pin pusher or something else. Just kind of interesting what they engineer into these things nowadays. These Swiss Army tools seem to be pretty high quality. I forget what I paid for another one of these. It couldn't have been any more than $20. I think they're about $20 on Esslinger. Actually, $22.99, but well worth it. I'm just going to say right now, this is the best traveling tool thing for watch case bags, at least the snap type. I haven't tried any of these pry type tools, and there's a tool by Bergion here that's arguably better because obviously they're a well-respected Swiss brand and they make the highest end tools. So I definitely need to try that one at some point. But for what I've been doing, this one is very sufficient and I'm really liking it. As you can see, there's actually a second version, which I probably would have tried out if I had known it was there. It comes in a few different colors. And the second version is supposed to have a wider case back knife for opening stubborn cases. Otherwise, very identical. So anyway, my short review on this thing, I've been using it for a few months, is very high quality, has not chipped or broken yet, and I'm just very impressed all in all with the quality of this little case back opener knife. Seems just as sturdy as a solid one-piece case back knife. Whew! Man, 1 hour later the vlog is ended, man. I gotta figure out how to cut that back a little bit, especially on days when we're supposed to be listing. Let's get some listing going! The Sunday vlog is going up. Okay, so we have this promotional watch here that has a logo and says 5 years on it. This is a 5-year employee watch of some sort made by Sweda out of China. They make a lot of promotional watches for companies from the 1980s. Anyway, the challenge is, can you identify that logo? That's a logo I could not find, dealer could not find. It is hard to figure out. I think I recognize it, but I can't figure out what that's from. If you know, leave it in the comments below. Okay, and with those 11 listings, that finishes up all the watches that I had pictured and ready to go there. Ran out of the smaller bags. We have more of those coming, but I had to put them in bigger Ziploc bags. Now it's time to make a decision whether or not to tackle some stuff in the back room or tackle these. So I guess I will go look back there and make that decision. Heading home for lunch shortly. Okay, decision. I am moving on to camera stuff here for a little while. One interesting thing I didn't point out before, but that I did with all these mechanical watches, these are the hand-wind ones. Basically, I wound them all up. Took me quite a while to wind all these up, but it was kind of worth it because then you can kind of time test them. So I set them all to the correct time and just had them tick away for a couple days. And now I'm pretty confident that they're all working to a fair degree. Anyway, let's go to the back room here and pick out some of that camera stuff. Here's the camera stuff in question. There's a broad variety here. I think I'll just start with all the stuff on this table. And I'll have to go take a look through this stuff here at some point as well. Okay, so there's the camera stuff before I untote it. Going out to lunch. Okay, 20-minute, 45-second Monday vlog. Good long vlog. I'm not going to put all the little items sold cards in there and not going to do a lot of significant editing, just pretty raw. For a 20-minute vlog, I think it only took me probably 15 minutes to edit, which is a lot quicker than usual, like a lot quicker. So that's going to work out, just as long as I can keep that up. Anyway, back in the office for the afternoon. It's time to get those untoted and see what we have there. Well, there is a pile of stuff. I'm going to take a quick pan through here. This is all of the watches and camera stuff, minus the cases. That is ready to list. There's a few lots in the back room still too. Take a little bit wider sweep here. Those are all the watches that are still well sorted and ready to list when I decide to pick that back up again. Probably when you get in those other batteries. And then this is all the camera stuff. That's pretty crazy. Actually, both dealer and I said that, wow, that's not as much as I remembered, but there's plenty here for sure, especially for a week's work. A lot of these cameras are pretty dusty, and that's why they were not listed before, but this is an interesting case as well. This is pretty much a pick that we picked up stuff and never sorted it. We listed 2 totes out of 5, but we never sorted through this stuff. We have no clue what could be in here. This is all fresh merchandise, though not so fresh because of all the dust, but it needs to be listed, and I'm the one to list it, so let's get into some camera stuff. This is going to be fun. Fairly fun, that is, because you know all the dusty stuff. Luckily, I think most of the stuff in the cases here is going to be reasonably dust-free. The only really dusty stuff that was on display are these SLR cameras and things. May still got an air compressor and blows off. We'll see. Time to pick a side to start from. And you know which side I'm going to start from? That one looks more appealing over there, but let's start from this side here. First up, we have a... Actually, this is one of those names where you can't say A before it. It's the Great National #1. Can't really read that, but Stereo Opticon, if I had to guess, National something something Cincinnati. This is an old magic lantern. I would have to look up the exact date of it, but if I had to guess, this is probably from the 1880s or 1890s. It was originally probably gas or, yeah, I think gas-powered is what those were. There are a few different versions, but then it was electric converted sometime in the 1920s, as you can see here. Have to take a look at it a little bit further. I'll let you know. The lens on there is what our focus is right now. Take that off, list the lens. These magic lanterns come apart in various ways. The easiest way, at least for this one, is to pry off this right off here. It's not held on there by anything by pressure. Problem is, first you have to pry off this one, because there's this big thing at the top here that prevents the lens from coming off. Do a little bit of prying just to get it loose there. This thing should come right off, a little bit of wiggling. As you can see, work its way up, and there you go. This is the film carrier assembly. Basically a roll of 35mm film, or at least part of a thing of 35mm film would go in there. And they pull up this little bolts, threads under there. Seems to be a fairly interesting thing. This was actually used for movie film, so 35mm movie film. And this was a sort of projector for that. Now, this thing should come off just as easily. It's a little bit tighter, so I'm going to have to work at that a little bit. Should really grab my tripod to do this properly, but basically I'm just tugging up lightly on either side in repeating fashion. Right at first there, I just pried it off a little bit, and then after that, just kind of doing this over and over until it dislodges itself, which so far I'm just past halfway up. Coming to the end here shortly. And there we go. As you can see, this is an aplanatic or something like that lens. This is a lot different than some of them. A lot of them just screw out of here. This one is actually a pressure fit barrel lens. As you can see, it focuses by being pulled in and out. You can hear the optics need to be secured a little bit better, but as you can see, it says f3 and 1/4 inch, meaning the focal length, and that should be a really good lens. These are used on all different types of cameras, in this case a magic lantern, in a lot of cases large format cameras. If I can find a brand name on it or on the optics, I'll show you that. I do not actually recognize this brand name here. I think that says Sindo France. But here's one thing I like about pre-1930 lenses is the simplicity. As you can see, I took out the front group, rear group, and then you can open those up even further to clean and test them. They generally only have about 4 optics, sometimes even less, like a Petzval lens, one of the better ones, has 3 optics, but it's actually 4. 2 are cemented together, and that's a 4th. So this one may be 3, maybe 4. May just be 2, but either way, very easy to clean, very easy to disassemble. In this case, I'm disassembling this to tighten up this optic here because this is a little bit shaky over the years. Tightening the optic is more difficult on some than others. In this case, it's as simple as screwing in this rear set ring here, which is just vibrated loose over the years. These vintage lenses are almost entirely made out of brass. Some are made out of steel later on, but the earlier ones are all made out of brass. So in here, no shaking there. A lot thinner and a lot tighter. And the next up here, I will just clean the front and rear elements as I would any lens. As you can see, I cleaned this one pretty well to refocus there. And it may be kind of counterintuitive, or no, not counterintuitive, counterproductive. I'm going to remove the rear element again to see, or the front element, to see if I can find any maker's marks or signatures on the inside, as you sometimes find with these, which is kind of cool. As you can see, that set ring there really was not a lot deeper than it was there. That rear element was just about falling out. I keep calling it the rear element, but it's the front element. It's because I'm at the rear of the lens here. Okay, let's carefully dump that out of there. Yep, this is a cemented 2-element group, as you can see by the yellow line on top. That is the second element. Probably made with a different type of glass. If I rotate it here, there are no signatures on this one. A lot of Darlot lenses and higher end lenses actually have the signature of the maker in the front or the rear element. We'll see if I find one on the back. Sometimes they're even dated. Though these lenses are very simple, you still want to be very careful to put the element back in the exact orientation you took it out of. Otherwise, you will not get a proper photo out of this lens. Also, an interesting note, these are completely uncoated, pure glass lenses, so they attract dust like nothing else. Once I open this rear element, I can be sure, but actually this may be a Petzval lens design. It seems to be like one here as a cemented front element. 2 elements that are cemented together, and that seems to have 2 separate elements here in the rear. The set screw is actually right here, not right there. So let's get that unscrewed. Yep, this one certainly is a Petzval lens design. As you can see, there is one of the elements, there's the second, and there's 2 cemented in the front. Let's see if there's any maker's marks or signatures on this one. And there's the front element, the complete front element. There is no maker's mark or signatures on this. That would be cool to show you, but there are none. So you can see it's just an element, a spacer. That element goes in after that. And then that one goes on the other side of the barrel. Let's clean these all up, put it back together, and I'll talk about Petzval lenses for a minute. Pretty self-explanatory with a lens this old, but be very careful of dropping or like bumping any lens like this. As you can see right there in the very corner, that might just be a lens bubble, but these lenses can chip very easily. There's the chips I was looking at right there. Said it might be lens bubbles, but I think those are chips in the glass, way to the extreme edge. Basically, that could even be done by screwing in this rear set ring a little bit too tight. So you have to be careful with that. This should be barely firm and just not much more than that, really. You shouldn't try to make it flush or anything like that, or you might chip the internal elements. One of my biggest pet peeves with these lenses as a camera enthusiast and a bit of a perfectionist is that they are almost impossible to get every bit of dust off of it due to the uncoated elements. Use this little soft brush and a few other things, I can get most of the dust off, but these things are like dust magnets, like I said. A little air blower like that definitely helps, but there's really nothing you can do to get off all the statically charged dust particles. Despite my best efforts, that is about the best you're going to get for no dust inside the lens. As you can see, there's still a good amount in there, but that's just about how it is. All these lenses. Okay, so there is the lens back together. The only real way to tell whether or not you've assembled a lens correctly is to actually test it. Let's see if I can mount this to a camera and get some sample shots. Say 3 1/4 inch lens, so if I know correctly in millimeters, that's around like 85 millimeters, something like that. So let's try and get enough extension tubes to make that work. That's got perched up there, so I should probably take that down. But anyway, if you don't know anything about lens theory, this is probably get a little bit too technical for some. But basically, how a basic barrel lens like this works is from the center point of the lens, basically 3 1/4 inches is the focal length, and how that's determined is at 3 1/4 inches from the focal plane of the camera, which is where the film would be or the sensor would be, which is, as you can see on that side, if my camera's focusing, I can't see it. There's actually a mark right there. That tells you where the focal plane of the camera is. And from that point, that is where 3 1/2 or 3 1/4 inches will be at infinity focus. So, like I said, pretty technical. Let's try and get some sample shots. So, it's going to be hard to hold steady because I have no autofocus. Or no image stabilization, I should say. Which is obviously to be expected of a lens of this age. I'll put out a different focusing tube or a different extension tube in just a minute. As you can tell, this is slightly out of focus because this is about infinity on this lens. So like I said, please pardon the shaky footage. I'm trying to stabilize as best I can. But here it is with more of a macro extension tube. As you can see, you are seeing life through the lens of a 1870s optical design, or I should say that could have been worded a little bit better. You are seeing life through the eyes of an 1870s lens. Practically. This was probably made sometime in the 1880s or 1890s, maybe even as new as 1900, but it uses an optical design from the 1870s. As you can see, I'll have to get on my computer to see for sure, but I think this is actually pretty sharp. I'm impressed. Just how sharp and interesting this lens looks. Let's try to get a close-up on a watch here. If you go over to the watch area, there you go. Some different little intricate watches and things. Really a cool lens. Definitely put together correctly and definitely seems to be functioning. And you know, of course, it's probably the next big vlogging lens, right? Okay, this is full arm's length there. That's a little bit too close. And there you are back on my normal camera. Oh, wait. There you go. That's better. Oh man, so this thing has a long focal length and it's not super usable, but I was really surprised at the optical quality of that for, like I said, 1870s optical design. I'll go show you the Wikipedia here in just a minute on how that all worked out. There's a camera I was shooting on. This one actually didn't need a lot of extension tubes. Some of these you need to hook up a bellows and all kinds of other things. It's actually a pretty short focal length lens, meaning not quite as valuable, but definitely easier to work on and figure out. So to list this lens, I basically just need to remove the flange from this board here because that's a handy pressure fit mount, and then it's ready to list. Okay, so never mind. It was actually developed a lot earlier. This is an 1840s optical design. The Petzval lens was developed in 1840 by Joseph Petzval and marketed by Voigtlander. It consists of 2 double-head lenses and aperture stop in between. The front lens is corrected for spherical aberrations, but introduces coma. Second doublet corrects for this, and the position of the stop corrects for most of the stigmatism. However, this results in additional field curvature and vignetting. The total field of view is therefore restricted to about 30 degrees, and f number of 3.7 was achievable, which was considerably faster than other lenses of the time. Probably didn't need to read all through that. You probably could just give you the Wikipedia article and whatever, but that's how it is. Anyway, there is the optical design of Petzval. As you can see, a cemented element. and then 2 separate elements. That's exactly what that is. That is a Petzval lens. That is really good. It's not made by Petzval. Petzval was both, 1, an inventor, 2, it was the name of an optical design made by that inventor, 3, the name of a company that made the lenses that use the Petzval lens. This is none of those. It uses the optical design. That's about it. As you can see, this was made by that one company in Paris, where that one was. Sindo, out of France. Which Petzval was from France, so that kind of makes sense. Anyway, valuable lens, good lens, let's remove that thing and get listed. Too long of a segment. I just think there's historical value in the first camera lenses. And this was the first successful optical design. It was used all the way up until probably the 1930s, before it was replaced by like the Cooke triplet, and like the Bosch and Lomb had a 4-element design, a few other ones, but this one, that was one of the originals right there, and one of the better ones. It was really good for portraits, mainly. Had this really cool swirly bokeh in the background that people liked. Aesthetic that people are trying to replicate in video and photos today, all day long. That's exactly why these go for big money. I'll show you just quickly. eBay completed listings for Petzval lens. Over the past few years, and actually past many years, as these have become more and more popular, I remember at one point there were 600 Petzval lenses listed, and they're all listed at ridiculous, outlandish prices. A lens similar to that one could have went for as much as like $16,000 to $20,000 back a few years ago. Now they're becoming a lot more common as people realize what they are, and they're going for a lot less than they used to. But as you can see, these are all unsold listings here. Get into the sold ones around the $1,000 range. Here's one for $920. Here's one for $950. And here's some of the newer Petzval lenses. Actually, these were re-released recently. Here's one for $700. Here's one for $650. Here's one for $630. I'd say back a couple of years ago, Petzval lenses could be sold for about double what they're going for now, if not even more. Petzval lenses have always been pretty desirable over the last few years. And now they're just kind of on a downswing. We used to sell, I know we sold probably 4 Petzval lenses at over $500, and then we sold another oddball older lens at $1,200, and a few other ones like that. This one is a lot smaller than those ones I just showed you there, and with the flange and everything, probably market that at around $300. Well, these don't always come out quite as uneventfully as this one. I had one that sort of stripped a little bit, and then I was able to get clamped down and out of there. Oops, bump that off the table. But here is the flange that this lens slots into. That always adds good value to these lenses, because basically somebody will not have to fabricate this or a similar piece to use this lens. They can just screw it right onto their lens board and off they go. The cameras this would be used for could be all the way from something similar to this camera right here, all the way up to something like a Hasselblad size, I would imagine. Maybe even like a small, large format camera, like a 2x3 or something. Not sure of the field of view of this, but I know 3 inches is generally the longest dimension on your film plane, so 2x3. This is going to be a long vlog. If you like camera stuff, if you're really into the technical aspects, watch out. I'll try to hold it back a little bit, but I'm just going to keep on spouting that stuff for anybody who understands it. So all the different, it's not very technical, it's just stuff that is a little bit, it's not very basic as far as camera stuff goes. But I'm going to have a lot of camera stuff over the next couple days there. I'll just continue with the history. I'm pretty sure this Petzval lens segment is 7 minutes. This could be an hour vlog today, so that's what it is. It is what it is. I've been doing camera stuff for a lot longer than watch stuff, and therefore I can talk your ear off about it even more. So I'll take a quick look at the inside of this magic lantern while we're at it. I'm sure dealer will list this pretty cheap, plus shipping on it. We really don't do a lot with them, and we don't try to get a premium out of them. I'm sure it could go for a little bit more, potentially, but I believe this back area here is tin, and then this part here is brass. This is the whole condenser lens right here, and then here would be a sort of filter, I suppose, to keep down the heat. And then right here, this actually is made out of cast iron, this front piece right here. This is the film transit, and I suppose it's made out of cast iron, so it doesn't, I don't know exactly. So it's better with heat or something like that. Not exactly sure about that. Has kind of a cool little bolt lock system here. This is one of the more ornate magic lanterns I've seen, just with the whole look, finish, and everything. Okay, so the rest of the front part here is reattached. I couldn't quite get that to go flush, just a little bit too tight on there. I got it down as far as I could. The back part there is back on. Let's take a look at the inside of this thing. A lot of interesting Wikipedia articles out there if you want to try and learn something, but it was very similar. The magic lantern is very similar to the camera obscura, or at least there's a further development of it. Similar things have been experimented with in darkened rooms since at least the year 1000. The actual root of the thing can be traced back to around 1550, and they were in common use in the 1800s. This is actually a picture of one here from 1677. The difference between a stereopticon and a magic lantern, they're basically synonyms aside from one thing. A stereopticon is actually made as a slide projector rather than a magic lantern, which is a lot broader term. Slides, in this case, would be about 35mm slides. This may be an add-on piece from later on when they decide to adapt this, because I'm still trying to figure out whether or not this was adapted from gas, or I forget what else they used. They had some like hot burning thing they put in there that I forget what it was. But anyway, still doing research. I'll let you know when I figure it out. So apparently the older magic lanterns used either oil lamps, some sort of gas, or even like a candle. Of course, the candle lit ones were very dim. As you can see, a lot of them seem to have this fancy top on it, so I'm not convinced that this one is a gas or oil-powered magic lantern, or was originally one. Nope, apparently this dates from around 1910, and this is an original early electric magic lantern. This is not, or was not, a conversion of a gas-powered or anything similar there. Haven't come across a lot of those. Those are really hard to find. A lot of them have a smaller back section and have a chimney of sorts on the back. Still really cool, still quite an interesting display piece, but definitely not worth as much as the lens. The lens is what is worth money on these. The reason why you find a lot of camera, or at least camera-usable lenses on these magic lanterns is because these magic lanterns, when they decided to produce them, cameras were on their way out, or at least the first batch of Petzval lenses were on their way out. And what do you think the factory did to save money? Oh, we have this whole thing of unused Petzval lenses. Let's put them on magic lanterns. So in a lot of cases, these were unused lenses for cameras. They just decided not to punch aperture slot in them. But even in some cases you will find the aperture slot, and that's even more desirable because those were specifically made for a camera. But I think that's the general reason why you find these on the magic lanterns. It really was cheaper to just use existing lenses rather than produce new ones. So, one interesting thing. There is a lot you can find online. A lot of the information about cameras, a lot of the information about lenses, but anything that's like magic lantern era, even around that time, anything that predates probably 1910, and cameras and everything else in general, not a lot of the information is actually online. There's the Connolly Camera Museum, for example, and there's a few different resources like that, but for the most part, it's in books. And where are the books? The books are online, but they're in Google Books and they're non-searchable. So it's kind of an issue. As you can see here, we have a really interesting example. This is a 1908 Sears Roebuck catalog. It's actually a reprint from the 70s, I believe. And as you can see, here's their magic lantern section. In their magic lantern section, as you can see, none of these are electric yet. And this is 1908 apparently. This one here uses a gas burner. This one's oil-based. And that one, not sure, you'd have to look at it a little bit. But that is where you find information on basically like anything old lenses, old cameras, that kind of thing. A lot of that stuff, it's literally unsearchable. I don't know exactly how that works, but you have to look through camera catalogs of the time, camera magazines of the time, and you'll find it. It's out there. It's unsearchable in Google. You have to go through the archives of camera books and camera magazines and stuff. It's kind of a pain, but it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. And obviously I've been rambling on for too long, so you can tell I enjoy it. Okay, so here's the setup I was using to get a few sample photos for the listing. One of them here was of this watch. So I just kind of mounted a top light, use this thing to focus. I'll show you that on the computer here in just a minute. Hopefully I got a sharp one. So, as usual, I took a couple different takes to make sure I got these in focus on the camera, but here they are in Lightroom. These photos are 100% unedited. Straight off that lens from the 1850s, or at least as the 1850s optical design. Probably made sometime in the 1880s. As you can see, tack sharp in the center. I'm very impressed with that. So I keep zooming into these and I'm just more and more impressed. This one, it's pretty sharp, but for some reason it has kind of a displeasing aesthetic to it. It might be the lighting probably. It's probably just the lighting on the crystal. But all pretty impressive. And just like that, time has gotten away from me, and I have listed this lens. It is almost time to go home for supper, so man, I really didn't get a lot done this afternoon, except for that. Got some good photos on there of the lens. Got a good listing, priced up at $360. I don't think that's pricing it up. It should sell pretty quick at that price. Let's go next in line here, which would be this next strap, some folding cameras, and when we get back, that's what will be listed. Let's check what's in this box. I don't know what's in here. I see. So there's some instruction manuals and flash cubes and stuff. Okay, well, I'm over my normal spot here, and I was expecting it to rain, so I was under this little pavilion here, but it turns out it started hailing Man, Kansas weather is weird. It's so scary worse. I guess I can document it here on my phone. Find a small piece of hail here. There's one right there. A couple bigger ones too. Crazy. Well, I'm not gonna film any scooter clips today. Just a short practice session, just so I can practice a little bit. Haven't been riding much lately. Apparently some crazy weather in the area here. An F5 tornado went through a town about 30 miles away here just yesterday. I didn't get the full scoop, but that's what I'm hearing. So definitely kind of crazy weather. Who knows with Kansas, man. Okay, back in the office after supper. Man, had a little scooter session out there. Got a little bit of slow motion of the crazy storm rolling in. The storm definitely rolled in. I think you saw it outside the windshield there too. Oh man, just nuts. Kansas weather, tell ya. Another rainstorm, another day. Like I said, there's a tornado about 30 miles over. That was an F5, whatever that means. I didn't even look it up. But sounds great. Back in the office, let's get some more cameras listed. I have this one I cleaned up a little bit before I left. I have this neck strap ready to go, and then I have a bunch more that I'm still testing and working on. Well, this is a really interesting camera here. It'll be more interesting to see what it'll sell for, but this is the Canon 110ED. Canon made the 110E and the 110ED. They're Instamatic type cameras, but they're Canon's answer to the cheap Instamatic type cameras with their own premium Instamatic type camera. Some really odd features of this. First of all, we have two of them yet to be tested. This one I don't think works. This one I think works mostly. I haven't fully tested it yet, so I think this one works. The other one doesn't. This one came with the case and everything included. Uses a 6-volt battery, so that's really nice. It doesn't use AA's or anything. Basically, it's just like any other Instamatic. You put in the battery, you wind the winder, and you click, and it'll do an automatic exposure thing. This one has a few weird features. First of all, it has a shutter release screw right there. This is about the pinnacle of technology from Canon. I think they're trying to add everything in there. So it has a flash shoe right there. It also has a rangefinder. I looked through the viewfinder. Let's see if I can actually do this. There you go. See that little yellow window in the middle there? That's so you can align this. So you can align the photo. Basically focuses the photo before you take it. I was like, wow, I haven't seen a rangefinder in a camera like this before. And the reason why is because rangefinders are too large to fit in most cameras. In this one, no issue. You move the rangefinder switch here to focus the rangefinder. You look through the viewfinder and focus it with that switch. And then, that doesn't actually focus the lens. It's a non-coupled rangefinder. You have to set this switch to the actual setting. So it's basically, that's how they worked around it, being too large and not possible to couple in that small of a size. They made an uncoupled rangefinder. Very odd, something I've never seen before. Secondly, they have a day, month, year on the ED model, which as you can see, it has little wheels here. And you know, if you make it all the way to like 2082 or 2076, here you go. This little date display basically goes 0 through 9, and then 76 through 86, and then it also has a blank spot. The funny thing is in the manual, I saw on the cover here, just a little consistency here, I guess, they put 75 on this photo here, and this wheel only goes 76 to 86. I was like, huh, that's interesting. Let's look in the manual. In the manual, it says 75 to 85. Was the manual printed before the camera? Probably. Apparently the camera must have had a delayed release or something that caused that to happen. I'd have to look into it more to find that out. Anyway, so a little Instamatic camera that you can focus with a rangefinder. It has a good lens. You can attach a full-size flash unit to. You can travel from, you can catalog your photos, dates from 2000 through 2009, and then 2076 through 2086, this is the camera for you right here. Enough rambling on it. Let's get it pictured and listed along with the rest of the stuff here. Just kind of a funky one. I actually have not seen one of those before, so I'll be interested to see what that goes for. That camera I showed you uses a 28L type battery. This was generally used in larger SLR type cameras. Hard to see, but such as that one right there. That one uses a 28L battery as well. See if there's any other higher end 110 film cameras. I know there's a Minolta SLR zoom, and there's also the Pentax Auto 110. But they're far and few in between. 110 film was, for the most part, an Instamatic. This other one we have does not function correctly. As you can see, the lens holder there is actually supposed to, the lens cap thing, the sliding lens cap is supposed to stick at the end there. It does not. It will not stick, and when it does not stick, the shutter button doesn't work. Even if you hold it all the way, it does seem to work, but the shutter curtains do not open. So, it was receiving battery power. It does not work. Sold for parts. This one has the case along with it as well. Just wipe this case down, and I'm probably not going to sell it the camera. A lot of times, when you find cameras that are in the cases, the case is not really sellable along with the camera. The case is a protector of the camera, basically. The camera inside is going to be in nice shape. The case may be a throwout. So, it's supposed to be dry and hopefully sunny out tomorrow, so all the rain will dry up. And tomorrow, we'll be bringing out the air compressor and trying to blow off some of these cameras. As you can see, this one, it's pretty much just loose dirt. It's not very fused on there, so I think an air compressor will do pretty well to get rid of that. A few more here that'll need it. The other ones, I'll get listed today. So one thing I don't think I've covered before that you find a lot of in old cameras, film spools. Just take this one out of the camera here and get it to focus. Basically, film spools are what the film threads onto, and especially in roll film cameras, they are removable. And we did used to sell these. What is the market like for film spools? In short, not great anymore. As you saw, probably if you saw the stuff that we sold a couple days ago, we did sell a big lot of film spools. Those were about the last we had, and those were pretty specialty ones. At the advent of 3D printing and manufacturing and all that kind of stuff, film spools have been 3D printed / plastic, made out of plastic, and really are not worth a lot anymore. There's some oddball ones, but for the most part, their heyday is gone. We used to get $13 each for these film spools. Now you'd be lucky to get $5. Like I said, if you like the camera testing stuff, this is the video for you. I'm just going to keep going through these cameras here. This is a Kodak folding camera of the strut type. As you can see, it pushes in and out. Basically just pull it, pops out. Also has a leg on the bottom so it can sit flat on a table. That just kind of fell out by itself. Basically, the testing we go through on these. First up, we test for light leaks in the bellows. You take the back off. You look through on a bright light. Check for any holes or anything like that. Mention that in the listing. Second, we test the shutter. In this case, on this certain camera, the shutter switch is right there. And there is a shutter selector on the top. T, which means when you hold it down, or when you press it, it'll stay open, and then you press it again, it'll close. Or instant, which instant basically means that it shoots at an approximate speed like 1/50th of a second. It's a set speed, and that's how that works. So let's see here, there's a shutter button. You can see on instant, take the back off there to make it easier to see through there, but make sure that it opens and light goes through. And on T there, push down, it stays open, hand off the shutter, push again, it closes. A lot of them will actually have a B mode, which basically means as long as you hold down the shutter button, the shutter will stay open. This one has a T mode for some reason, which is interesting. I don't know what either of those stand for. I know B stands for bulb, I don't know what T stands for, probably time exposure, I believe. So anyway, that's about how you test it. There's a couple more settings. There's this right here, I forget. Is that a strut? Is that a B mode? Yeah, so that must be the aperture or something. Let's see here. Yes, that is aperture change. Basically, that is the size of the lens opening. So for in brighter conditions, you flick that switch, and if you can see it rotating on the inside there, it would be easier in T mode with the thing open. Okay, so that's an aperture disc right there. If I flick the shutter open here in T mode, you can see through. And then if I move this, as you can see, the aperture changes. This is for brighter light and brighter situations. Okay, so the third thing, or the whatever number thing is that we test on these cameras, is the viewfinders. There's a viewfinder at the top, there's a viewfinder on the side. Basically, you hold it at waist level, and aim it at light source. It's the easiest to see indoors. If you're outdoors, that can work a lot better. And basically, just see how clear of an image you can see. If there's silvering missing, you'll be able to tell. That's about how much we test these cameras. That is now tested. The leg on the bottom here is a little bit loose, but not going to worry about that. Probably mention that in the listing. Okay. That one's ready to list. I'll show you if any discrepancies on these cameras, but they're all very similar. This is a little Bantam camera, standard Bakelite. You press that little button, it pops out. It's another strut type camera. You pop the back off. This one actually has an 828 type film spool. Oop, and there it goes. This was not held in there very well. Basically, it slots right in there, and that's a little bit different type of film spool. And then just to test the shutter, there is a button on the bottom of this one here. As you can see a little bit of light going through there. Not sure this one has a B mode. Should be able to tell in just a second. Yes, it probably does, unless there's an aperture. Anywhere there's a pull or a switch on the camera, it's generally a different shutter mode. That is the B mode. So basically, you pull out this little switch right there to activate B mode, and push it in, and that's back in instant mode. Okay, so basically, a lot of the folding cameras are very similar. If I find anything different, I'll let you know. And also forgot to mention just general testing advice. Make sure to clean the lens. And I usually don't market these as working cameras. Or I mean, I do market as working cameras, but I usually don't market them as use this right away. Because some people will try to use these and they're not the easiest to use unless you know what you're doing. But anyway, the lens focuses by twisting on this certain model of camera. So it's good to test that. Make sure it actually has a focusing lens before you twist it or you'll unscrew it. And then of course you can clean the lens. Should be pretty well known, but there's definitely quite a few different ways on how to open Kodak cameras. In this case, it is actually a non-hidden button right there. Just kind of pops open, pull down to snap it shut. And they pull out the bellows by pressing the button on this side, which lifts a little clicker thing there. And they pull it out, notch it in, and it's locked open. To test this shutter, this one actually has a few different settings on it. Again, very simple. It has a single shutter button right there. So that triggers all the different modes. And it has a bunch of different settings. Also has an aperture at the bottom, which is an open/close leaf aperture. So let's put that one all the way to open for testing. Open the back. And then this is 1/25 of a second. Shutter works. Not perfectly. It's definitely a little bit rusty. Okay, there you go. It's bulb. Seems to take a minute for it to warm up a little bit. 1/50th. That's T, so it sticks open. And that's 1/100th of a second. Shutter doesn't work perfectly on this one. It does work. Viewfinder is the same as the other one, but there's only one of them. And in the way they get around that, it actually swivels, so you can do it sideways or that way. As for the back, it actually has two buttons that you push to unlock it. Basically push this button and the one corresponding one on the other side. Push it, pull it off. There's your back open. Check the bellows for holes. That one does have one in the left top corner, small one. This one's just generally bad shape, so that's how it'll be sold. Well, that's a fairly cool box right there. This is an Ansco Ready Set Royal. This was a folding camera finished in ostrich. Let's see what condition this one's in here. Actually, that looks in fairly nice shape. Original manual here. And there's the camera. As you can see, ostrich leather. Let's pop it open. This one has a small button right here that you push. Swings open, pull down to pop into place. And then there you go. You can just pull the lens out of here too. This one's a bit stiff, a lot of these are. And there you go. There's your brown bellows, ostrich leather camera. The latch on the back of this camera is quite loose. Look through the bellows, check the shutter. Same old, same old. Just an interesting camera with the ostrich leather. And then right here, we have a nice rainbow Hawkeye in black. Forget exactly how much extra it was to get in different colors, but this is a rainbow Hawkeye. And they chose not to get the color. It was additional amount of money. Also, there's an issue there. The bellows are in there. So that's how it was. So maybe I broke those previously. I did not like break them loose or something. That's just how it is. Still will sell. On this camera, the shutter does not work. As you can see, when I press the shutter button, nothing happens. Well, no, there you go. Took a little bit of loosening up, but either way, doesn't work super well. And then the aperture ring is actually, it operates this little hole right there that tells you what aperture you're on, which these are not actual f-stops, they're just 1, 2, 3, 4. But that's your aperture selection. That seems to work, and apparently the shutter does work, just not very well. Test it in stuck open mode. Yeah, that seems to be working better. But either way, all these cameras are from between probably 1905, and this one here is probably more from like 1920 or 1925. But either way, super old, and they don't all work. And then moving on to the late 20s all the way through the mid to late 1940s and even into the 1950s on some models is, this one is the Vigilant 616. They came Senior 616s, Vigilant 620. There was the Tourist from the 40s and 50s that was similar to this design. This was a design Kodak used for quite a while. So one actually has a glass viewfinder, which is different from the newer ones, and it has a multi-speed shutter, which if you see here, let's pop the back on this one. This one also has a back that does not fall off when you open it. It actually hangs down and has a hinge on it. As you can see, the shutter button is right there. So to test the shutter on this one here, basically you pull this little lever to cock the shutter. This is the newer shutter that they introduced in the 1950s. T mode here. Sticks open. B mode. 1/25th. 1/50th, and finally 1/100th of a second. All seem to work. This one seems to be in good condition. It has an aperture at the bottom, which actually adjusts on the back instead of on the front like later models. Has a focusing ring right here. And then the viewfinder, as usual, is right up here. It turns side to side. It also has a top-mounted viewfinder on this one, which is more of a sport finder design. Good, more press photo-like things. Check the bellows for holes. Lots and lots of holes on this one. Let's see if I can see that on the camera. Yeah, you can definitely see it. Look at those holes there. That's probably one of the worst cases, but there's definitely a lot of holes in this camera. And actually this camera does a good job of seeing that. Forgot to mention how to close the cameras. In most cases on these strut type cameras, or the, not strut type, because strut type are ones that pop out, I don't know what they call these. Basically you push on this side, you push on the other side on the same spot, and it'll fold in. There's some different ones with a button right here that you push and it folds in. And there's some other variations too on this one. You just push those down and fold it in. On a lot of the ones, you push the bed all the way back in and then you can fold it up by pressing those struts. Okay, this battery's almost out. I've charged that up. Basically, the way I'm doing listings tonight is I'm going to go 20 at a time. So right now I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 cameras, I believe, prepped, ready to go. So only 9 more and then I'll get that going. This one is in super dusty shape. That'll go through their compressor. This is a Kodak Tourist. This was released sometime in the mid-1940s and produced all the way through the 1950s. The Kodak Tourist 2 came out sometime in the 1950s and was produced for about 3 years until the end of the run. This one has push in the middle to close. Now struts, there's supports. That one will go to the dusting pile. Next up here, before my battery runs out, these are Kodak SX70 cameras. We have 2 of these, and we'll have to see if those work. Those are pretty cool. They're kind of briefcase styled, leather. These had their heyday, and they're now down a little bit because so many people have realized the value of them. Back when these were super hot a couple years back, we used to be able to get as much as $300 for a working one of these, maybe even a little bit more than that. Nowadays, a working in this condition, if this one works right here, we'll probably list it up at $150. So, still good, not super great. Worst condition makes them worth a lot less. And parts cameras go for about $50. They used to go for over $100 for a parts camera of these. Let's test it out. The one issue of these cameras is testing them is, how can I say it, hit or miss at best. Basically, the ideal way to test it would be to have a film cartridge, which costs about $25 to $30. Put it in there, take 10 shots, and see how they turn out. In my case though, I basically use old film cartridges that the batteries are still okay enough to power a camera in them. The problem is, I have a bunch of these and I'm not sure which ones are good and which ones aren't. So basically I'll take a couple before I get it right. I've had previous testing solutions where I've used a battery hooked up to wires, and basically we stopped selling these recently, so I really haven't been making or using those that often anymore. So, like I said, hit or miss testing on these. Not a super hot item for us anymore. We'll pick them up if we find them. Especially the SX70. The SX70s we still buy, but I mean like standard 620 film cameras. I don't think this one works, because this film cartridge does seem to be functioning. See the shutter flickering there. So, hit or miss. If I can get it to work, I'll get it to work. Otherwise, it's sold for parts. Basically, the way to be sure you have a good cartridge for testing is to use a multimeter. I just tested this one out. This one tests out 6.09 volts. The other ones are around 5.4. If it's 6 or over, it should work with your camera. And if your camera doesn't work, it's most likely the camera's issue. These SX70s had a lot of inherent flaws, and that's why a lot of them are for parts. There's one little contact that pushes into here. It's a mechanical contact. It pushes apart 2 pins. If those pins get bent at all, it does not make proper contact. and will not work in that situation. Which, as I can tell from this, it just doesn't seem to be working. On the other one, I got a little bit of shutter flicker, which is usually with a camera that doesn't work correctly. So, this one's probably a parts camera. If you do get one of these that works, basically you have to test the focusing, check that goes in and out, seems good. Look through the viewfinder, focus through the viewfinder. The viewfinder has a rangefinder type focusing system, so you can test that. Also, you can test the exposure, make sure the shutter goes long and short, since it's an automatic shutter. A few different tests there. And that's about it. Just press the shutter a few times, make sure the motor runs well, and a bunch of other things. If the other one works, I'll show you. Otherwise, that's just what you have to do. I think I've changed my battery here pretty soon, but this one actually has a pack of film in it that still has film in it. The battery is dead on it, however. It's for my test cartridge. That one sounds rough, but that's what it's supposed to sound like. Well, it's supposed to sound, at least it has that. And there you go. And it's dead. That's what I expected. This one seems to be a lot worse shape than the other one. This was more used, but sort of works. You see a response. Still a contact issue there. It's not working very well. So anyway, you find a lot of these in varying conditions. This one is in worse condition cosmetically, a little bit better condition working, still sold for parts because it has some issues. Because there's still a lot of people shooting with them, there's still a lot of people repairing these. These still go very well for parts, especially with nice leather like this one has. Also, for one final note, anybody wondering how to open and close these safely is basically pull up on these little knurled hand grips on the top of the prism. Don't be afraid to pull a little bit hard. If it doesn't seem to open, then you're probably just not pulling it hard enough. I don't think I found any that break when you do that, because that's how you're supposed to do it. And then to close them, you press this little strut or support right here. Should pop, should fold down well. If it's actually broken where the mirror is stuck up, it will not close down correctly, so do not force that. If it doesn't kind of collapse down on itself like this fairly easily, just don't try to close it, sell it like that. Then you won't break the mirror, and the person who buys the parts one will be happy with it. Okay, I'm going to see if I can do this before the battery shuts this camera off again, but basically how to test this little PAX camera is a small rangefinder, and actually the winder snapped on that, crazily enough. Basically, you just wind it like that, press the shutter button. There's a variety of shutter modes here to test out. The focusing is usually with the lever. Look through the viewfinder, make sure the little window aligns. Just a bunch of basic testing and a few different things. I'll definitely show a different example later on. I'll be back up once the battery charges. So if you've heard, I've been having some issues with my Mac crashing / weird glitches on the display. I think I just figured out a way to trigger it and show it to the Apple people at the Apple store. That's one thing I was trying to figure out. I'm not really sure what I want as a result of this, because I don't really want a new computer if this one's going to work. So anyway, let's show you how to do it. Basically, if you go into the displays menu, as you can see, there's nothing there right now. If you go to, it works best with external displays, so you still have a mouse so you can work on it. If you exit out of System Preferences, go to System Preferences, then press on your keyboard, Command, Option, and I have to do this camera hand. Then click on Displays. As you can see, a new option shows up, Rotation. Rotation has not been fixed and triggers the issue that I've been encountering from time to time. Change it to 180. As you can tell, once it resets, it has all kinds of glitches. It's having colors earlier, it has like flashing. Let's try a different rotation here. Even more issues, look at that. So now I have a way to show the people at Apple, if I go to an Apple store, what is up with it. Maybe they can tell me how to fix it. Hopefully it's just software. Hopefully it's not hardware. There are other people who have been having this issue. But as you can see, I've found a way to artificially induce the issues I've been having from time to time on this computer. Also, obviously, crashing is another issue I've been having, but I don't think that Apple has all their bugs worked out. My theory on it is that technology is moving so fast nowadays, just to keep up, tech manufacturers, instead of having a year to work on the bugs, make the best software possible, all that, they're having to release products more or less beta, basically because they need to get the products on the market to keep up with the current tech, or they go out of business. So as opposed to a few years ago when tech was moving slower, and let's say they had a year to work out all the bugs, all the betas, everything. Now they have 6 months, or even worse, 3 months to work out the bugs, work out the stuff before they have to put it on the market. That's just an example, just a thing. There are some issues with the MacBook Pro 2017, 2016 with Touch Bar though. Anyway, sort of new battery in here. This battery is about half charged. I have 20 items ready to photo. Let's do that. Well, not much more vlogged on Wednesday. Those are the items I listed there. I'll get a count here in just a minute. But basically, I'm back in the office here on Thursday, ending the vlog for Wednesday. Okay, so 28 items, $1,064 listed yesterday. There are the items right here. If I scroll down, all the way down to about there, just the first Cindo France lens. Not a crazy listing day today, but let's get that number up on the board, and then I'll go through the items that we sold for the last 24 hours. And the final total with dealer stuff in there is 33 items, $1,469. Let's go through those items that we sold last 24 hours. Okay, so let's start from the watch channel here. Actually, two pretty good sales. First up, a Fossil Airmaster AC 1635, little watch there. That one sold for $47.10. Next up, I knew this one would sell. This is like all the rage in women's/men's dress watch fashion nowadays, is the Cartier Tank, which they make it in both a quartz and automatic version, been made since the 20s in very similar style. This is a Seiko quartz homage to that watch, meaning that it's a very similar watch, but it's made by Seiko instead of Cartier. Priced up $150 with no reference or anything, sold quick, sold like one day later for $150. Had 4 watchers and then sold, so that's a good one. Next up here, a Kodak Vest Pocket Model B folding camera user instruction manual, sold for $14.23. Next up, a set of new old stock Bell & Howell TDC stereo vivid camera filters, $17.32. A Hasselblad rapid wind winding crank with a bent piece there, but in reasonable shape, sold for $25.30. Next up here, a Kobayashi 35 Peachtree Super 2.8 range finder camera, sold for $25.93 for parts or not working. Next up here, a Kodak Retina 2A 35mm film folding camera case. Even in that kind of condition, those go pretty well, $16.90. Next up here, a new old stock Celestron T2 mount lens adapter from Mamiya ZE bayonet mount SLR camera, sold for $17.39. Next up here, a Pentax SMC Pentax F 35mm, 35 to 70mm f3.5 to 4.5 zoom lens, sold for $49.72. Next up here, a 15-foot long male to female PC sync extension cord, sold for $16.90. Then another Wide Lux nipple bell shutter release cable adapter, sold for $16.90. These have been really moving out lately, most of the ones in the black finish. This one is one in the chrome finish, a 45-degree Hasselblad L connector adapter, sold for $21.77. We only have one of these left as far as I know, but 3 in the last 3 days, I think. Next up here, a big old tripod, a Kwikset Husky heavy-duty TV movie camera tripod, sold for $64.25 plus shipping. And then, last but not least here, a OEM Canon iCup for A1, all those, $8 that sold for. So, fairly good sales, especially with that $150 watch. That is a good one. I was really surprised. I'm pretty sure we paid no more than probably probably around $5 for that thing. Just like any of the other watches we picked up. Just happened to get a good one there. Anyway, that is about it for the Wednesday vlog today. Thanks for watching. I know there's a lot of camera content, a lot longer stuff, and then there's kind of a time skip, but now we're the next day. It wasn't the greatest day in my opinion, and of course we slept in here a little bit today. So anyway, tomorrow is another vlog, another day, another crazy listathon. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe below if you enjoyed. Stay tuned for that upcoming vlog tomorrow. Noah out. Goodbye. Crazy outro.